Now, welcome back to another video. This behind me, it's an older model van. It's 2011 model Kingdom Kensington van. The inside, the carpentry work is actually quite good. I almost think that an older van is almost better than a newer one. But that's just my 2 cents, I'm not a carpenter. Full Victron system in here. The actual inside of the van has hardly been touched apart from the screen. And then we also did a diesel heater, but under the bed, there's not much else. On this vehicle, everything else is at the front. Full Victron system, tank monitoring, multiple solar arrays, that being 2, DC charging. The inverter is down the bottom. Yes, I know some people are gonna go, oh, you should have mounted it up top so you got more storage, but the only actual structure to support the weight of that was down the bottom. So we didn't have much choice, but the customer can always put some shelving above that in there. Batteries, 2 Element 3 350 amp hour cores, which are been securely mounted, bolted in, nice and solid, so they're not going to go anywhere. All your main fuses, you've got another small fuse panel here, all labeled. You've got your Victron system fuse, which is something that I explain to all my customers what we do that for. Input MIDI fuse, you got your low voltage disconnect, which is off a switch inside. 50 amp DC charger, 2 50 amp solar controllers, that's doing 500 watts this side, 500 watts on that side. I'll show you that in a sec. Servo unit, the GX tank, Victron GX tank, which is monitoring the 3 water tanks, and then just our shunt circuit breakers for the inverter. And then our 240 stuff, the circuit breakers and stuff are on the inside where it's easily accessible. But yeah, beautiful looking system. Nice and tucked away, and it's great because it keeps all the storage under their bed free. Now, we did do something a little bit different here. We've actually done a diesel heater that we installed for the customer, which is under the bed. So it's under the bed here. You've got, it's a Belief 4 kilowatt diesel heater. And then you've got the screen just next to the bed head up here. Now, this model is actually Bluetooth as well, so you can connect it to an app on your phone. And then the diesel tank, keeping in mind that we wanted to keep it sheltered from any sort of rock spray or anything. Tank's up the front here. It's got a level sensor on it. It's got a lockable cap, so no one's gonna borrow your fuel. You'll see as you walk in the door up the top, we've got our servo screen. Now, I've been testing this van overnight, just running the batteries down. So while the batteries are down, what I'm gonna do is do a bit of a discharge test, which I'll do through like the kettle. I'll grab the sandwich press, I'll turn the aircon on, and try and give these batteries a good hit out with the inverter. I'll turn the fridge on with 12 volt, I'll do all that. So what we'll do, obviously you've got your water tanks as well. The third tank's not actually in yet, but I've got the cable there and the sensor there, and the sensor's programmed, but they just need to plug in the sensor. So the fridge, they've got a 3-way. I'll show you how we're going to plug that in. At the front here, they've got a 6mm twin Anderson plug that goes to this one, that goes to the fridge, and then this one here goes to the DC charger. We put this Anderson plug in the front here because they potentially will be getting a blackjack in the future, and it also acts as a solar input. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to plug that into there, and now the fridge is actually going to run through our DC loads. So you see that almost 400 watts on the DC loads. That's actually the fridge trying to run, and that's just running off our battery system and pretending that like that Anderson plug's plugged into the car essentially. Okay, I've got some kitchen appliances here. I've got the aircon cranking at 16 degrees. It's nice and cool. We're drawing off the servo system, off the battery system, running the fridge and running the aircon. We're drawing 100 amps off the battery system. Now let's turn the kettle on. That's gonna blast us all the way up to about 290 amps. So with our AC loads is 2700 watts, and our total load off the battery system is 3700 watts. So the inverter is operating in a very small amount of overload at the moment, plus we are running the fridge as well off the DC loads. So see the battery voltage there, 12.71, under almost 300 amps of discharge. That's expected, even at the batteries at 75%, sorry. Now if I say turn the kettle off, even at 100 amps of discharge, those batteries are still sitting at 12.95. So they're doing exactly what they're meant to be doing. And if I turn that aircon off, so even at 26 amps and 100 amps, the voltage on those batteries is staying the same at 13.8 volts. Now, these batteries at the front, they're Bluetooth. So what I'll do is I'm just gonna jump on and check with, you know, how we've wired them. So we've got 195, 96 amps off one. Its internal temperature is getting up to 29 degrees, which is fine. The other one, 195, 94, 93 amps. So exactly bang on the same. And again, MOSFET temperature is getting up to 29. That'll go up to 80 before the battery turns off. But then the temperature sensors 1 and 2 are the cells. They'll go up to 65 and then turn off. But they're only at 24 at the moment. And as you can see here, you've got remaining battery percentage is 72, just dropped down to 71. And you can see all your cell voltage is there. It's still quite balanced, even under a big load. Jump back up in here. You can see our voltage is down to 12.5, under 380 amps of load. I'm going to turn off both of these 240 appliances. So now we're just running the fridge, and battery voltage straight back up to 13 volts. So operating exactly like it's meant to. What I'm going to do now, shore power. Okay, inside here we've got our RCD box for our 240. Obviously AC input, I've already got the van plugged in, so that's why the input's off, and then the output is on. So if I flick that on, because we're already in inverting mode, this is going to take 10, 15, 20 seconds to recognize the 240 power coming in on the multiplus, and then our wattage is going to appear up here and it's going to start charging. So charging's just kicked in. You can see there our wattage coming in, 1800 watts. It's charging at 80 amps because we're still running the fridge off DC. Okay, that's pulling 20 amps, that three-way fridge running off DC, just keep that in mind. So we'll be getting at least 100 amps of charging straight off shore power without the fridge running and without these internal lights and stuff running. Now again, if I turn on these both sandwich press and the kettle, we're going to go into assisting mode. Okay, so instead of pulling, I think it was like 400 and 450 amps down here, now we're only pulling 100 because the 240 shore power is assisting the inverter with our AC load. Just turn that stuff back off, and I'm going to let this system charge back up. I'm just going to move the van outside now and get the solar to do its thing and start charging as well. So now the van's outside, keeping in mind that it is still only 8 AM in the morning, so the sun is still quite horizontal and it's not overhead or anything. But this is the roof. Now there was a original solar array that came through the roof here. Solar array through the roof there. Now they're the ones that we run. We actually ended up running two because we were going to split them up anyway, but there was only one on the roof. So we ended up just running two freshies, and then the old one is just redundant, and we've just made it safe. Two circuits, 250 watts is each panel. So 500 watt array on this side, 500 watt array on that side. The reason I like to do it in two, one, redundancy, two, because if the sun's over this side coming down, that aircon's going to shade off of that rear panel. And if you had them all together, you'd kill your efficiency. So keep this side separate, keep that side separate. If you're doing ones on the front, I always like to keep them separate. We were going to do ones on the front here, but once the vehicle got to us, I saw how much of a slant that front section was on. I wasn't super stoked with it. And then it wasn't worth the money for the customer to do one there and at the back. So I just told them to not worry about it. So we've got a passenger side circuit and a driver side circuit. gone through the 250s with the two 32 amp double pole circuit breakers. Now they are series, so like I said, we're only getting 300 watts in at the moment. That's because the sun is still quite early, but you'll see our solar voltages. I'll try and get it on there for you. You can see that we're getting in 36 volts and 37 volts roughly. Both circuits are in series. 15 amps charge, but we're getting 1,000 watts. The solar array max is 1,000 watts. What I like to do, and I'll get the boss, the editor, to put it up in some maths on the side of the screen, so I'll just do it on my phone while I'm talking about it. So we do 1,000 watts, okay? Real world conditions for Australia, I'll say take 10 to 15% off. So let's say for this instance, let's say 10% off the top of it, that gets us to 900. And then we will divide that by the lithium batteries voltage, which I find the best voltage to divide that by to be around 14 volts, because that's what they're ideally trying to charge it to. And that shoots us out 64.28. So across the whole array, we'll be getting a maximum of 64 amps roughly in Australian conditions. Everyone thinks because we're in Australia, our additions are fantastic. Not the case. They are good, yes, but in summer we have a hot sun. These panels can be black. These ones are white, but they can be black. The solar cells are black. They retain heat. Their heat gets trapped under the panels between the roof and the panel. Therefore, then the cable also is in a higher air, like the ambient temperature where the cable sits is also higher. So you're getting heat through the panel, heat through the circuit. That creates more resistance. And because we don't have like a cold climate with a still bright as sun in like summer or winter, we don't get ideal conditions. In somewhere like the US states, yes, you'll see that, but here in Australia in summer, our sun is good, but it's also hot, so it kills the efficiency a bit of our panels. That's why when I see a lot of these vans with flexible panels mounted straight to it, big no-no. I absolutely dislike. Very inefficient, and yeah, that looks good, that's cool, but there's no air gap underneath, very inefficient, and then the glass panels tend to be better than the flexible panels anyway. So hence why we use them. Simple setup, very efficient setup. It's gonna work wonders for these customers doing their lap. Okay, and then our DC charging. So I've just got this lithium battery that we use with the van mover. I'm gonna plug that into this Anderson plug here, which is our DC charging Anderson plug. Now, we did the wiring on the customer's car, which is a Isuzu D-Max. We needed two Anderson plugs, obviously one for the fridge, it's at the back there, and then one for the DC charging Anderson plug. Now, we put it on an isolator on the car under the bonnet so that the Anderson plugs on the car will isolate and turn off once the vehicle turns off. It's a smart alternator vehicle, so it needs to, something like a charger here, needs to have a trigger for it to actually turn on and not just pull, say, 10 amps instead of 50, because the voltage that the cars are running at with the smart alternator is actually quite low. It was only hitting like 12.5 volts at idle. So because we've wired up the Anderson plugs on the car with the ignition trigger with that isolator, we've done the ignition trigger on this and hardwired it to the Anderson input. So if I go inside now, that DC charger should be pulling pretty close to the full 50 amps, because I've basically said to the charger, let's disregard any voltage that's coming in and just use the maximum that you can get out of it. So we're pulling in 50 amps, and that lithium's at 13 volts, but it's dropping down to 11.2 under load. And then our output there is 13.6 at 40 amps. So we're getting 40 amps of charge in because, like I said, I've basically told the DC charger, when this ignition wire is powered, you turn on and you charge at the maximum you can. You don't take any notice of voltages, because that way the car, when they're driving, is going to charge and at a decent rate. It's not just going to charge at 10 amps, which we see in a lot of vehicles, on a lot of towing vehicles with DC chargers, because the DC charger will always look at input voltage, and because the run is so long and it is under so much load, if it is like a 30, 40, 50 amp charger, the cable size, one, not the right size. By the time the voltage actually gets to the charger, it's reading like 10.5, 11 volts, and it won't charge at its full capacity. Set it up this way and it'll just not take any notice of voltage, and it'll just charge. Perfect way of doing it. And then second to that, the customer doesn't have to worry about unplugging the car when they pull up, because the isolator is ignition controlled. So it isolates, turns the Anderson plugs off essentially when the car engine turns off. So the customer doesn't have to stress about pulling the Anderson plugs out so they don't drain the battery in the car. Simple setup, but just so efficient, and it takes any human error out of something going wrong, like draining the starter battery in your car. Won't happen in this sort of setup. So that was the Kingdom Kensington van, 700 amp hour system, 3 kVA inverter, up to 60 amps of solar, 50 amps of DC charge. Everything labelled, yeah, it's nice and labelled. Everything's done as per AS 3001. Certificate for this van, video for this van, for the customers, for their like hand of video, troubleshooting video. They're gonna get all their job sheet, which is gonna have all the parts, all like the serial numbers, warranty periods on everything. And yeah, full comprehensive system. Got any questions, chuck them in the comments, I'll do my best to answer them.